Welcome everyone to Half History Will Travel. I am your host, the Wilder Historian, and in this video, I want to read some letters from a chaplain stationed on the peninsula during the latter half of 1864. His experiences paint a vivid picture of the Union situation during the sieges of Richmond and Petersburg, and he even runs into a cast of characters, including Ulysses S. Grant. August 29, 1864, in the p.m. Captain Todd engaged an ambulance and the whole party of us went out to a slab town to attend the Baptist Black Meeting. They had the most original and peculiar way of doing things at the service that I ever saw. They jumped and danced and bowed and shouted right in the meeting. The minister preached, and while he was pounding on the desk and gesticulating, the sisters moaned, the brothers groaned, and now and then one would have a kind of hysteric fit and sit down in the paroxysms of the floor. There has been an immense amount of digging about the works of Petersburg. All sorts of utensils, axes, spades, shovels, and horse scrapers are going up on the government steamers almost every day. The Flag of Truce boat New York just left the port on her way to the place of exchange on the James River. The surgeon on board took a quantity of old sheets that we had to bind up the wounds of the suffering. Dr. Mary E. Walker came down from Richmond, where she had been confined 5 months by the Flag of Truce. We were much interested in listening to her experience and reading the rebel papers she brought away with her. This lady was a nurse in one of our hospitals, and being a regularly educated physician, was appointed surgeon in an Ohio regiment some year and a half since. She was captured by Rebs in Georgia. She is dressed in man's clothes and wears a hat and U.S. insignia of a major. September 1, 1864, General Grant came down to the fortress to bring his wife and boy and put them on a Baltimore boat. They went up to his headquarters on Sunday last and are now returning. The general, wife, and boy were sitting composedly on the afterdeck, talking and enjoying themselves in a homelike way. The inevitable cigar was in the general's mouth, and his nice little wife didn't seem to mind it a bit. His boy is about 6 or 7 and seems to love his papa. The whole family went on board the Louisiana, the Baltimore boat, and pushed out in the bay toward their destination. The boat halted a short distance out. A small tug came alongside, and General Grant bade his family goodbye, stepped in the tug, and came ashore. September 4, 1864. We have just heard this a.m. of the occupation of Atlanta, Georgia by General Sherman. Let Grant take Petersburg and Richmond now, and the rebellion is crushed. The Flag of Truce boat came down night before last, with about 500 sick and wounded Union prisoners. They have been neglected and starved, and when I saw them, they were very destitute. I arranged matters with the surgeon and went on board of the vessel with 2 barrels of crackers, 1 box of ripe peaches, 4 dozen jars of jelly, 1 box of shirts and drawers, and 1 box of bandages and rags to bind up their wounds. We treated them as well as we could, and they went on their way to Annapolis, Maryland, where they will be cared for in a regular hospital by the government. September 16, 1864. I believe that I told you in a recent letter that I had the extreme pleasure of a few days since of shaking Lieutenant General Grant by the hand on board the Baltimore boat at Fort Monroe. I rode over to Norfolk this a.m. in the very same boat and read the Sunday Morning Chronicle on the same seat where a few days before Lieutenant General Grant was resting himself. The morning was cool, not frosty, but real nice September weather, and the shores of the Elizabeth River, lined with heavy dark groves of timber, looked beautifully in the bright sunlight. We saw the place where the Cumberland and the Merrimack sank, and many other things of interest before the houses of Norfolk came in sight. October 16, 1864. Since I last wrote to you, Mr. Tisdale, the agent here, has made a short tour of inspection to the front. I have been in charge since he left and have endeavored to conduct affairs satisfactorily under circumstances. The hospitals here remain full. I think there are at least 6,000 men in the wards and tents. All are cared for and attended to by faithful nurses and competent doctors. Our delegates operate pretty extensively through the hospitals and are doing a great amount of good. There is such a gathering of frigates, gunboats, and war vessels as has never been before massed together on this continent now going on. The place of rendezvous is Hampton Roads and the bay around Norfolk. Admiral Porter is to command the fleet, and the probable destination is at Wilmington, North Carolina. The object is to utterly break up the system of blockade running and subdue that troublesome town. October 17, 1864. Yesterday I went out to attend the Black Church at Hampton. The morning was clear, fine, and embracing much like those glorious days of Indian summer in Wisconsin. The horse cars carried me out to Hampton Hospital, the end of the rail line, and from there I crossed the bridge over the creek to what is now known as Burnt Hampton, burnt by the rebels at the beginning of the war. A city of slab houses has arisen during the last 2 years from the ashes of the former town, all of which are populated by black people, and they buy, sell, and traffic and work like the folk of any town. But on Sunday the streets are quiet. The stores and shops are closed. The buyer and seller with their families are in their Sunday clothes and at the house of worship. What a rebuke the consistent example of these poor folks has given our demoralized Sabbathless army. The minister lines out the introductory hymn, and the people almost without exception are joining in the singing. Old Bellarma never sounded sweeter to my ears than when I heard it sung by these people. They do sing well. All the parts are blended, and a magnificent tenor voice, well sustained, penetrated the whole and gave the music character. It sounded like a majestic choir of 100 voices. Thank you all so much for watching. I read his letters and knew I had to share them with you all. His letters also help us understand the mentality toward African Americans in the South by Northerners. He also makes Grant human in his writings, rather than the general we hear about. Grant as a father and a husband rarely gets talked about, and having a first-hand account helps us understand how other people perceived him, as a loving father and husband, not just a general. One of the more interesting moments in his letters is when he met Dr. Mary E. Walker. She is a famous figure of the Civil War, receiving her doctorate in medicine from Syracuse Medical College in 1855. When the war broke out, she offered her services to the United States but was turned down. She would volunteer as a surgeon on the battlefields in both theaters of the war, and in September 1863, Dr. Walker became the first female U.S. Army surgeon following her commission as a contract acting assistant surgeon by the Army of the Cumberland, and she would be awarded the Medal of Honor for her service during the war. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day.
Historian, where do you roam? Historian, far from home. Have history will travel reads the card of a man, a professor with knowledge in the heartland. To educate the world is his mission. A professor of fortune is a man called historian.